A junior lawyer actually had the audacity to forge a court summons for a prostitute. The court seal on the summons was homemade. He intended to use the court summons to force the prostitute to testify and clear his client of suspicion. However, this summons was issued half a year after the drug dealer applied for a habeas corpus writ. And it was fake. Lincoln guessed that the prostitute and he were not the first to receive the summons. The first recipients should have been the deceased, because the gun that framed the drug dealer for life imprisonment was planted by the deceased. The drug dealer needed the deceased to testify in court. This indicated that the drug dealer had no reason to kill the deceased, so he entrusted a lawyer to issue a summons to the deceased. Shortly after receiving the summons, the deceased was killed. Obviously, someone didn't want the deceased to testify in court. However, before Lincoln could investigate, a narcotics police officer directly snuck into Lincoln's car. The police officer claimed that the drug lord had been involved in 7 homicides since he was 19 years old and had countless lives on his hands. He didn't care if the evidence was real. He just wanted to put the drug lord in jail. He warned Lincoln not to help the drug lord, who deserved to be in prison, and then left directly. The arrival of the police officer gave Lincoln a bold guess. He speculated that since the drug lord's life sentence was orchestrated by the narcotics police, when the police learned that the drug lord had applied for a habeas corpus writ and issued a summons to the deceased to testify on his behalf, the police were afraid that the truth would come out, so they killed the deceased. Lincoln also found out that the gun used by the narcotics police to frame the drug lord with the deceased was a lie from the gun seller. The assistant mentioned that the confrontation between the 2 major gangs that year was likely related to contraband transactions. Both the homicide division and the narcotics division might have been involved. There might be a connection between the narcotics police officer and the man who was following the deceased. Now, they needed to find a case that could prove the intersection between the 2 people to verify this guess. After investigation, she discovered a homicide case related to contraband dealers that occurred 10 years ago. The investigating detective was the man who was following the deceased, and the narcotics police officer was the man's contact. Finally, the connection between the 2 was found. The bearded man went to the gun seller's place alone, and the seller refused to provide any information about the gun. The assistant noticed that the bag on the boss's wife's arm was worth $30,000, which was definitely not affordable for a gun shop owner. The bearded man investigated and found that the boss's wife worked in a casino and often used her identity to provide contraband to customers. Her expensive spending was supported by this method. When he mentioned the police officer's name, fear appeared on the woman's face. The bearded man learned that the narcotics police officer often used his position to coerce others to do things. The woman had once been arrested for carrying contraband, but after the narcotics police officer intervened, the case was shelved. The bearded man guessed that it was because the gun seller agreed to give false testimony in the drug lord's case that his wife was released. Lincoln went to the prison where the drug lord and his entrusted lawyer were. The lawyer told Lincoln that when the drug lord was lying on the bed resting, the police suddenly broke in and went straight to the drug lord's bedside table, where they found contraband and a gun. Therefore, the drug lord was sentenced to life imprisonment, and the deceased had the opportunity to plant the items. Lincoln met the drug lord in prison. The drug lord had a lot of power in prison, and both the prison guards and inmates obeyed him. Lincoln told him about being threatened by a snake. The drug lord denied doing it. The deceased could prove his innocence. How could he kill the key witness who could save him from prison? In order to be released from prison smoothly, the drug lord accepted Lincoln's suggestion and became Lincoln's client. However, just when Lincoln was preparing to start the investigation, an accident occurred.